Jai Bhim all of you and good evening. Very warm welcome to all participants in today's webinar. I am more than grateful to be here and welcome you all to this knowledge enhancing session organized by Association for Social and Economic Equality. Since last 1-2 years, this platform ASEE has been organizing such type of webinar on various subjects like anti-caste movement, Dalit Bahujan issues and issues related to their socio-economic growth. In previous webinar, we discussed the topic like anti-caste movement in colonial Bengal, claims of recognition and redistribution, Dalit thoughts and anti-caste movement in late colonial Tamil Nadu, Baswanna, an advocate for true democracy and human rights, and many more. Myself, Akshay Gujar, student of social work, Dalit and Tribal Studies and Action from TISS, Tata Institute of Social Science, Mumbai. Today, I shall be walking you through this seminar. Today we have our Honorable Chairperson of this webinar, Padamshree Professor Sukhadeo Thorat sir, former Chairperson of UJC and ICSSR, New Delhi, and the President of ASEE, Association for Social and Economic Equality. Sir, with your continuous efforts, guidance, and a will to do something for society, we are organizing this 82nd webinar. These informative seminars, knowledge enriching discussions, and topics with various themes, subjects has been adding values to our knowledge and helping us to understand the various perspectives by our guest speakers. From last several talks, we are inviting distinguished guest speakers, experts from South Indian states, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Kerala, and knowing more about the movements, thoughts, and ideologies. I warm welcome to Professor Sukhadeo Thorat sir in this webinar and requesting him to deliver an introductory speech of today's webinar. Sukhadeo Thorat sir.
Well, thank you. As Akshay Gujar has said, for the last couple of weeks, we have been trying to understand the anti-caste movement in different parts of the country. And we have almost covered most of the state. We will have 2 more lectures on Orissa, and then it will be followed by social movement in Madhya Pradesh. But today we have a very important region that is Kerala, and we are very happy to have Gilbert Sebastian from the Central University of Kerala. I'm so happy that as soon as I talked to him, he has agreed to share his views on the anti-caste movement in Kerala. He has been working on this issue for quite some time, I was told. So today he will cover not only the much studied anti-caste movement by I just forgot the name. Gilbert, what's the name of the first anti-caste? Narayana Guru, very famous. And then, of course, Gilbert will also touch upon Narayana Guru was also a Dalit background. But there are other 2 people about which we know very little. Ayyankali, isn't it, Gilbert?
Yes, yes.
Ayyankali and one more.
Poikayil Yohannan.
Yeah. So, Kerala, we know little less about the anti-caste movement because there has been a predominance of left movement in Kerala. But, wherever there is exploitation based on caste exists, there is likely to be, and there's likely to be some response by the people who suffered from that. So there is no place, there is no province in India where there were no effort by the low caste to respond to the caste discrimination and exploitation. And I think Kerala is not an exception to that. Kerala literacy rate is very high. It is also high among the Dalit. So Gilbert, we are very happy that you have agreed to speak to us, and we will listen from Gilbert the anti-caste movement, the thoughts that they have argued for, and as well as the activity that these 3-4 people have taken in Kerala. We are very eager to listen to him. With this, I pass it on to Akshay Gujar to carry it further.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of the associations, I welcome today's guest speaker, Honorable Dr. Gilbert Sebastian, sir. He is Assistant Professor at Department of International Relations and Politics, Central University of Kerala. Today, he is going to enlighten us on the topic of anti-caste movement in Kerala and overview. Before beginning the session, I would like to invite Shubhangi Khandare, Master Program Student of Political Science, Nagpur University. I request you, ma'am, please give a brief introduction of our today's guest speaker. Shubhangi, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Jai Bhim, and a very warm welcome to everyone once again. I am profoundly delighted to take an opportunity to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Gilbert Sebastian, for the evening. From November 2015 to the present, he has been an assistant professor in the Department of International Relations and Politics at the Central University of Kerala in Kasaragod, a postdoctoral fellow. The CDS stands for the Central for Development Studies, Postdoctoral Research Associate, Developing Countries Research Center, University of Delhi, as awarded by the Indian Council of Social Science Research. Researchers, Postdoctoral, Council for Social Development, New Delhi, Associate Fellow. His educational qualifications are: he has a postdoctoral 2 years in September 2014 on development, accumulation, and disposition in contemporary India, focusing on land issue in the big plantation of Kerala state from the Indian Council of Social Science Research, that is ICSSR, based at the Center for Development Study, Thiruvananthapuram. He had a PhD in political science from the School of Social Science, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, submitted in February 2007 and awarded in January 2008. The thesis is titled Class, Nationality and the Development Process in Kerala State since 1970. He has an MPhil in Political Studies from Jawaharlal Nehru University in 1997 with A- grade. The dissertation was titled The Role of Narayana Guru in Kerala Society 1888 to 1982. A contextual analysis. He has a Master of Arts in Political Science from Northeastern Hill University, Shillong in 1993 with first rank and high second division. He has a Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Arts honors in Political Science from Northeastern Hill University, Meghalaya in 1989 and 1991 with a second division in each. He has a Bachelor's of Philosophy course at Jannadip Vidyapith, completed 3 out of 4 semesters with first division grade. Sir has published several books, chapters in books and articles in various national and international journals. He has completed several projects, of which I would like to mention the postdoctorate 2 years submitted in September 2014 on development, accumulation and disposition in contemporary India, focusing on land issue in a big plantation of Kerala state by the Indian Council of Social Science Research, New Delhi. He has presented several papers at national and international conferences and seminars. They invited him to speak at all India conferences and state level seminars, single authored. He has organized several conferences and workshops at the national level. He is talking about his award of fellowship, distinction, and honors. He has secured and availed the ICSSR postdoctoral fellowship in 2012 to 2014. He was a visiting scholar at Queen Elizabeth House from mid-March to mid-June 2002. He also presented a paper at the Contemporary South Asia Seminar at Queen Elizabeth House on May 30, 2002. He received a junior and senior research fellowship and lecturership in political science from UGC NET in June 1994. as well as he got a first rank in MA Political Science from NEHU Shillong in 1993. I warmly welcome to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Shubhangi. Once again, I warm welcome today's guest speaker and requesting sir to deliver the lecture. You can start.
Thank you, Shubhangi and Akshay Gujar sir. And I am very happy to have been invited to speak in this seminar. A group of very serious academicians concerned about the most oppressed section of society. I will straight away start without much introduction, because Shubhangi has given a very long introduction that was not necessary. So can I share my PPT?
Yes, sir. You may
Okay.
share.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see it? Can you see it?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So this is anti-caste movements in Kerala, an overview. Okay, so in the book The Cracked Mirror by Gopal Guru and Sundar Sarukai, they have discussed in detail about experience, the role of experience in theorizing. But I would like to admit that my association with the anti-caste movements was one of solidarity in view of the concerns of social justice. So it is not grounded in the Dalit experience of having faced untouchability and discrimination. I consider it an honor to have been invited by Professor Sukhadeo Thorat himself for this webinar. Now, just to start with, to speak about the socio-religious movements in Kerala, there were two foreign scholars, Thorat and Lemercier. In 1978, they wrote an article in the Social Scientist. The title was Socio-Religious Movements in Kerala, a reaction to the capitalist mode of production. However, it was more complex than what is expressed in the title of this article. So, in fact, it was not just capitalism developing. It was actually caste structures were there, and feudal structures were there, and colonialism came on top of that, and then capitalism developed under colonialism, and then in response to capitalism developing under colonialism, then these kind of movements came up. So that way we like to theorize it. So it is not just a capitalist mode of production arising just as it happened in Europe. So as D.D. Kosambi says, it is a coexistent mode of production that we have in India. So E.M.S. Namboodiripad said that the traditional system that we had was caste Janmi Naduvari system. Caste, you understand, Janmi is landlord, and Naduvari is actually the kings, the local kings. So this was the kind of system, but then it did not reveal the Brahminical character of this system. So it is better to say maybe Brahminical Janmi Naduvari system. Okay, so this was the traditional system, and then you had, I'll just tell you briefly, about the caste structure in Kerala. So we had Brahmins around 1%, and there were Paradesi Brahmins and also Malayali Brahmins. Malayali Brahmins were Nambudiri Brahmins mainly, and there were Paradesi Brahmins were Maharashtrian Brahmins, Marathi Brahmins, Konkani Brahmins, and so on, and Tamil Brahmins, Pattar. So like this. So they were only around 1% of the population, and Kshatriyas were nearly non-existent. It was actually the Varma caste who were part of the royal family. So they were the Kshatriyas. So it was nearly absent. And in the Hindu caste order, Vaishyas were also absent because the Syrian Christians, who now constitute around 17% of the population, and the Muslims, Mapula Muslims, the total Muslim population in Kerala today is around 27%, not only Mapula Muslims. So Mapula Muslims and Syrian Christians, they fulfill the role of the trading and agricultural work of the Vaishyas. So there were no Vaishyas among the Hindus. And then the Nayars, who constitute around 16% of the population today, were called, traditionally they were called the Malayali Shudras. And their position was akin to, quite similar to Kammas and Reddys in Telugu states, or Vokaligas and Lingayats in Karnataka. So you understand this phenomenon of so-called upper caste Shudras in South India. And they used to hold military and administrative positions. And they used to hold higher tenancies like Kanam. It was called Kanam. And the Brahmins used to hold Janmam tenancies. Janmam means, they had ownership of the land. And the Brahmins were very powerful in Kerala as compared to anywhere in the rest of India, because the Brahmins had all of the land under their possession, under their control, whether it is with the temples or with the Brahmin himself, or Rajaswam. There were three categories. Rajaswam was also supposed to be given to the Brahmin if the Brahmin asked for it. So they invented this myth that Parashurama had gifted this land to the Brahmins, and that is how they legitimized their dominance. And the Iravas, that is the backward caste, they are around 25% of the population today, and they were traditionally untouchables who used to engage in agriculture and also toddy tapping. So toddy tapping was considered polluting, so they were also considered untouchables. And below them were, but actually the Iravas gained caste promotion because of the social reform movements which they waged under SNDP and so on, and also the land reforms which they fought for under the leadership of the communist parties. And below the Iravas were the enslavable castes, that is the scheduled castes or Dalits, which that we call today. The subcastes are Pulayas, Parayas, Kuravas, Vetuvas, and so on. And slavery was abolished in 1858 onwards, around later half of the 19th century. And this retrenched labor was taken to the plantations to the colonial plantations as bonded labor. So although it was slavery was abolished, they were taken as bonded labor to the plantations, and mainly they used to engage in wetland cultivation, and wetland cultivation was considered polluting because they had to go into the slush and plant and also till the land and so on, So you can find a higher number of SC population in districts like Palakkad or Alappuzha, Kuttanad region and so on, where wetland cultivation is more. Okay, or Thiruvananthapuram, Kollam and so on. So the scheduled caste the Hindu scheduled caste constitute around 10% of the population, and the Christian scheduled caste constitute around 7% of the population. So they are actually divided religion-wise. And in 2008, 2009, there was a movement in a place called Chengara in Pathanamthitta district, that is in south central Kerala. And there they waged a land struggle in a plantation, which was illegally held by a big plantation called Harrison Malayalam Plantation. So there, I talked to the leader there during the movement. His name was Laha Gopalan. And he was telling me that the biggest achievement of that movement was that they were able to bring together both the Hindu scheduled caste and the Christian scheduled caste together. And they wanted to constitute an identity together of scheduled caste. And they were not for this word Dalit. They felt that is very negative in connotation. So scheduled caste was okay for them. And the Adivasis constitute around 1% of the population, and they lived apart from in the forest as hunters and gatherers, and they were outside the formal caste system. And later on, slowly they were integrated into the mainstream society as agricultural laborers, mainly. So this is the caste structure of Kerala society historically, traditionally. And then in the end of 19th century and beginning of the 20th century, we had the anti-caste, the social reform movements in Tiruvidankur, that was the southern part of the state. There were actually 3 regions before the unified Kerala was constituted. So in Malayalam, it is called Keralam. In English, it is called Kerala. Both are okay. So Tiruvidankur was the biggest princely state in the south of Kerala, present-day Kerala. Kochi was a very small princely state in between Tiruvidankur and Malabar. Malabar was directly under colonial rule. Okay, and there were customs like untouchability, unapproachability, and unseeability in Tiruvidankur. And Vivekananda, when he visited Kerala towards the end of the 19th century, he said that this is like a madhouse. Then Dr. Palpu met him. He was a leader of the SNDP movement, Sri Narayana Dharma Paripalana Sangam. That was a movement of the Idava caste. So they did not want to include other castes into that. So Idavas were also Avarnas, however. Okay, later on they became backward castes. Avarnas means, below purity line. So the Renaissance movements these movements were called Renaissance movements or caste or community movements, reform movements, or social religious movements. Okay, they were more or less peaceful, but there were sporadic incidents of violence because the dominant conservative sections they attacked people who were fighting for their rights peacefully, and then there was some sporadic violence, like you might have heard about the Chanar riots, the so-called Chanar riots, where it was relating to the wearing of upper garments, the blouses and so on. They were not allowed to wear. So Chanars were also equivalent to Idavas in the southern Tiruvidankur, now partly part of Kanyakumari district and so on. Okay, and these movements were led by Narayana Guru There was a mainstream movement, SNDP movement, led by Narayana Guru, and Ayyankali and Poikayil Yohannan. Sometimes he is called Poikayil Appachan. Appachan is more a colloquial word. And he is also called Kumaran, Poikayil Kumaran. Poikayil is his house name, and Yohannan is the name he adopted when he joined Christianity. Yohannan is John in Malayalam. And Pandit Karuppan among the Fisher community, Wakam Abdul Qadir Maulavi among the Muslim community, and Nidhirikal Manikatanar, that was end of 19th century, among the Christians. Christians means this is Syrian Christians actually. So all these were caste reform movements. And there was also another person called Chavara Kuriakos Elias, Father Chavara Kuriakos Elias. He focused mainly on education among the Syrian Christians. The CMI congregation is actually led by them. So actually, Karl Marx says that you know this quotation that when the material productive forces of society come into conflict with the existing relations of production, then the era of social revolution begins. So because the existing relations of production have become fetters, or they hamper the further development of productive forces. So this was what Marx said in contribution to the critique of political economy in the preface to that. So this theory can be applied to understand this kind of movement, because the capitalism was developing under colonialism. Railways came, and a middle class developed, English educated middle class, and plantations, commodity production was happening through plantations, and banking and finance developed. So all the signs of capitalist development were there, and in response to that, this kind of movement came up. So it began very slowly in 1891 as a signature campaign given by the Nair leaders to the Maharaja of Tiruvidampur, requesting that the educated middle class in Kerala, other than the Brahmins, also should be given jobs in the government service. And this was followed soon by Irava Memorial. That is, the Iravas, that is a backward caste who are under the purity, below the purity line. They submitted a memorandum to the Maharaja in 1896, 5 years later, requesting for jobs and education in the jobs, especially in the government services. Okay, so that was how it began. And then after meeting Vivekananda, they started the movement SNDP Yogam in 1903 under the leadership of Dr. Palpu and Kumaranasan, who was a poet. And it was basically a very elite organization, and it wanted to remain an Irava organization. Irava means the backward caste community. And Narayana Guru, he made a pratishtha of Shivlinga in 1888, and he was actually from an untouchable background. So the Brahmins questioned him, how you can do this pratishtha. Then he said that see, this is our Shiva. Okay, this is not the Shiva of the Brahmins. This is our Shiva. Okay, that is how he tried to escape. And then he was very clear about what he wanted to do right from the beginning. So he wrote on the wall of the temple, without differences of caste, without differences of creed. Okay, that is religion. Everyone dwells here in this model place. Okay, so that is what he wanted to achieve. Although he installed Shivlinga, because the people were actually believers of Shiva, and they used to go to the Brahmin temples, and they used to stand far away, and they used to offer offerings and money from because they were untouchables, they were standing far. Okay, and they were putting the offerings on a leaf. So this money was also going to the Brahmin temples. So at least the money will come to their own temples if they do this. So slowly Narayana Guru wanted to bring them to consciousness. Okay, slowly, he educated them to more political demands. Initially, it was, religious reform, reformation of customs, marriage and inheritance rights. These were the reforms initially, but later on, it was more political demands like temple entry and prohibition, that is, prohibition of liquor and representation in legislature and so on, So that is how it was. So I will first focus on the movements of the bottom section, that is Ayyankali and Poikayil Yohannan. Then I will come to Narayana Guru. Okay, so the struggle on the caste front was the primary one, and Vaikam Satyagraha was there under the leadership of the Congress, Indian National Congress leader T.K. Madhavan, who was also part of the SNDP Yoga. Okay, Vaikam Satyagraha was for temple entry, where they were not allowed. Initially, Vaikam temple was a Buddhist temple, but it was taken over by the Brahmins, and then the untouchables were not allowed. So in 1924-25, they demanded this temple entry. And Kerala was the first state in India which allowed temple entry in I think it was in 1928 or 29, okay, in Tirudankur. But then they did not allow the non-Hindus to enter temples. Okay, that is, people say that it is part of some kind of an untouchability. So the Christians and Muslims who are believers, they are not allowed. And NSS, Nair Service Society, organized themselves for caste reforms under the leadership of Chattambi Swami, that was from the Nair community. And they also made certain reforms within their community, so that they can so marriage and inheritance rights and so on, and reformation of customs. Then Wakam Abdul Qadir Maulavi among the Muslim community, and among the Nambudiris, that is the Brahmins, Malayali Brahmins, there was a person called V.T. Bhattadaripad, who was mainly focusing on emancipating the Nambudiri women. Okay, that is quite similar to Rajaram Mohan Roy in Bengal, who also did the similar kind of thing for the upper caste women for remarriage and for abolition of sati and so on. So similar kind of thing happened in Kerala also. But then, the difference between Bengal and Kerala was that in Kerala, the mainstream movement was from below the purity line. In Bengal, the movement was mainly from the upper caste sections. Okay, that was the main difference between Bengal and Kerala. And in 1905, Ayyankali, who hailed from the Pulaya caste, which was a enslavable caste. Not all of them were slaves, but they were an enslavable caste. They could be enslaved. They started Sadhu Jana Paripalana Sangam. Sadhu Jana means, the humble people.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the Pulayas of Kochi also started their movement under the leadership of Krishna the Ashan. Kochi was another princely state, a very small princely state. And then Pandit Karupan, K.P. Karupan. Pandit means it is not Brahmin, it is actually, that is his name. He was from the Fisher community. He started his organization, Bala Samudaya Parishkarani Sabha in 1910, like this. So, this the communities which were placed above in the caste ladder, they had resources and they were able to take better advantage of these reforms of the new society. That is what actually these two foreign writers are saying, Thorat and Lemercier. But then this is not quite true, because if you take the case of Nambudiri Brahmins, they were so conservative, they did not accept English education. So they remained, their development was hampered because of that. That was an exception. But the other castes, they accepted the English education and they did better. Okay, and they did not want to. These were actually reform movements, and they were not very strong enough to challenge feudalism or caste system or colonialism. So they wanted to carve out a niche for themselves within the existing caste order. Particularly, if you speak about the Irava social reform movement, they were actually there was a strong tendency for Sanskritization. You are aware about this term called Sanskritization, coined by M.N. Srinivas, whereby the castes, mostly OBCs and so on, they imitate the food habits and customs and traditions of the upper caste, particularly Brahmins. And this kind of a phenomenon happened even in the case of Iravas, the backward caste movement. I mean, they were actually untouchables. Later on, they became backward castes. So similarly, the enslavable castes, they also got a caste promotion. They became the scheduled castes, or the so-called untouchables in the traditional society. And Narayana Guru was different. Narayana Guru wanted to bring together all human beings together into one organization. Okay, an organization that would bring together all human beings. But then the Irava elite who were leading the SNDP, they did not accept this. Okay, and Renaissance movements, they were quite tolerant and syncretic. Okay, and they placed a lot of emphasis on education and cleanliness. Okay, so that was so the education literacy rate increased very fast after the this kind of social reform movements by Narayana Guru and Ayyankali and so on. Okay, now I'll go straight to the movement led by Ayyankali. So this was 1893 to 1915. So this is Ayyankali. So he was born in 1863. The movement was from 1893. That is why I put it like this. And he passed away in 1941. Okay, before that, the movement was mainly between 1893 to 1915. After which, he became part of the Sri Moolam Praja Sabha, that is Legislative Assembly in Tiruvidankuru, princely state. And then people say that he was co-opted, but then he was working for the welfare of the untouchables and scheduled castes that time. But then he was not part of the movement from below. Okay, so this is in Malayalam. He is saying that if you don't allow, this in 1907, if you don't allow our children to enter the schools, the educational institutions, we will let grass grow in all the fields that you see around. Okay, we will not participate in agriculture, agricultural production, and only grass will grow in the fields. This was his challenge. Okay, in 1907. Okay, And the first strike that he organized was the arched bullock cart journey in 1893. Okay, so this was against the denial of the freedom to travel to the untouchables. They were not allowed to travel. They had to maintain a distance of 64 feet from the Brahmins, and there were even some castes. There was a caste called Nayadi. Is a hunter caste, I think. So they were not to be seen in sight. Otherwise, they were to be chopped down. So in the traditional social order, Barbosa, a Portuguese traveler in 16th century, says that when the Nayars, or sometimes even the Syrian Christians, used to imitate the Nayars, and they used to carry swords when they used to travel, and they used to chop down the Iravas. Iravas are now Oasis, or Mukuvas. Mukuvas are fisher people, and Pulayas. Pulayas are scheduled castes. So these kind of castes were chopped down but with their sword. And there is a saying in Malayalam, will you throw away the sword by which you cut the pulaya? Okay, they will wash the sword and they will put it into the sheath. And so this kind of saying was there. So in the Malayalam literature, or there is another saying, Kalli, that is the thief woman, stand straight. I have only one arrow. Okay, so I have only one arrow, but I want to kill you. So the thief woman means all the scheduled caste women were called thieves. So Pulakalli, that was the word used. Kalli means thief. That was by default, that word was used. So Venganur was the place in Thiruvananthapuram, Trivandrum, from where he started his journey on a bullock cart. So he wore a very elegant dress in white mund, that is dhoti, and banyan and headgear, and he was traveling in the Jenmis, in the bullock cart, which was usually used by the Jenmis, that is the landlords, and they were not free to travel on the roads. So this is actually reclaiming the roads. So this was the journey which he undertook, and he challenged. He flashed out a shining knife, and which he swirled around, and he challenged, "Come close if you dare, and I will show the true colors of Kali." Kali is Ayyankali's short name. Okay, that is how he challenged, and there was a bunch of people to protect him. Okay, and I met one of these people. I had his snap also, but because of the lack of time, I couldn't put it into the this. I met him in the Chengara land struggle, which I mentioned about in Pathanamthitta district. So he was telling me that the upper caste people used to go away because if they are slapped by or they are hit by the pulayas, then it is a big shame for them. So they kept away. They did not want to challenge these people when they went like this. Okay, and then he got a lot of followers from his first journey, and then he took another journey from Venganur, that is his place, to Aralamudu near Balaramapuram. Balaramapuram is even south. Okay, it is known for weaving and all that. That place is known for that. And then it was Muslims, the Savarna Hindus, in place of the Savarna Hindus, it is the Muslims who blocked his journey in the second journey, and that led to an armed conflict, which spread out to the nearby places between the scheduled castes and the Muslims. Why it is Muslims? Because Muslims were able to challenge because they did not have untouchability. If the Hindus were slapped by the Dalits, then it would be a shame, and it will be polluting for them. That was the logic. Okay, and then the Savarnas. So the next journey was carrying on his head the picture of the Maharaja Srimulam Tirunal. Okay, so he wanted to show that he had the support of the Maharaja, who was actually an enlightened king, and while returning back, they attacked Ayyankali and his followers, but he took the help of fisher people. So he struck an alliance with the fisher people, and they helped him escape. So even and then this was the kind of first struggle, and the second struggle was the first agricultural workers strike in the whole of India. That was in 1907. Okay, this is not for raising wages or something. It was for educational rights. They were actually demanding education. So Ayyankali organized this strike. I read out to you the quotation which from him. And he wanted to see at least 10 graduates in his community. That was his ambition. Okay, but they were denied even school education. So that was the situation in those times. Sorry. And then they constructed a school with bamboo and palm leaves in Benganur. That is his place. That is his place. And they took help from the present backward caste, that is Edavas. So Kumaranas and the poet and Parameswaran Pillai, he is actually a Nair from Thiruvananthapuram. So Parameswaran Pillai was called for teaching. So enlightened Nair started teaching. And then the Savarna caste came to close down the school. Okay, and in the night they burned down the school, and in the same night they reconstructed, before daybreak they reconstructed the school. Okay, that was the spirit with which they did this. They were demanding educational rights. And then Ayyankali gave memoranda to the Maharaja, and the government order was issued in 1907 that all this caste should be given entry into schools. But the Janmis and the Savarna caste, they opposed this, and they were not allowing that. And they said that how can we allow these polluting caste children to enter the schools? And then the caste of Ayyankali and other scheduled castes, they boycotted work on the fields. And the Janmis organized. Janmis are landlords. They organized themselves for cultivation, but they were unable to do it. So this strike went on for almost 1 year. Okay, and they had struck an alliance with the fisher people, so they were getting some food from the fisher people in the coastal area. So that is how they were able to manage. So, and they are quite used to being hungry, and they know how to manage with roots and some fruits like jackfruit and so on. but the upper caste people were unable to manage. So then, in 1907, the government order was again modified. The 1907 order was modified in 1910, saying that the scheduled caste can be given admission into schools which are run by Idavas. Okay, and then there were some people who criticized the Nair Service Society leader and well-known freedom fighter Swadeshabhimani Ramakrishna Pilla. He's known to be a very revolutionary person. This is in Malayalam. So he says that traditionally these people used to do agriculture, and the other people used to do intellectual work. And if you put these two people together, then it is like putting a horse and a buffalo together on the same yoke. Okay, that was the argument that he gave. Okay, and so this is the argument he gave. And then there was the 90th year riot, that is Tonura Mandalakala, that is in Malayalam, that is 1090 Malayalam era. That is in English era, it will be 1914. So this was actually again, they were highlighting the entry into schools, and the upper castes were not allowing that. And Ayyankali and his followers, they brought a girl child from the most oppressed caste, that is Pulayas, to a school called Uru Tambalam. Uru Tambalam is a place in near to Thiruvananthapuram. Okay, and then there was a clash which broke out between the Savarnas, and so because now the order is modified, so there was a riot which happened, and in Kochi state also, under the leadership of Vellikara Chaudhi, some initiative was taken to give education to the scheduled caste children. Okay, but there was also opposition even there. But in Tiruvidampur, it was even more stringent opposition. So now the government order threatened stringent action. Okay, and then gradually, so there was a lot of resistance when they wanted to implement this. And in 1915, there was a third strike, a major strike. That was a stone garland strike. Okay, that is, the scheduled caste women were not allowed to cover their bosoms in 1858, and that led to some riots because the missionaries were asking them to wear, upper garments, and the upper caste they were opposing this because this is not the traditional dress they are supposed to wear. And similarly, the Pulaya women used to wear the stone garlands, Kallayum Malayum they used to call. Mala is mala, and the Kalla is the stone. So that was a marker of their caste identity, and the royal proclamation was issued in 1818, which that allowing people up to the level of Marekar to wear ornaments. Okay, but then these people were not allowed. So these people are wearing this stone garlands, and they did a strike to throw away these stone garlands. Okay, so that is the strike which they organized in Kollam Perinadu. Kollam is Koilon. Okay, under the leadership of a youth called Gopaladasan, and Ayyankali was quite part of it. And the Nayars burned down 60 shacks of Pulayas at Perinadu in Kollam, and they attacked Pulayas. So each one of these assertions were met with reactionary violence by the upper caste and counter violence by the scheduled caste. Okay, so this was the kind of movement which was there. And then Ayyankali went to Perinadu and met the Diwan in Kollam and took social workers like C. Raman Pilla, and they organized for a bigger meeting with 4,000 Pulaya women and C. Raman Thambi, Nair leaders, they led this. And they threw away their stone garlands, and there was a pile of 6 feet of stone garlands which appeared on the stage because all the women were coming ahead and throwing their garlands. Okay, this is the kind of movement which was there. So this is so you can see that the agricultural workers' strike was not for demands related to agriculture, it was for education. And the stone garlands strike was for the right to wear ornaments. Okay, and the first strike in 1893, that was for right to travel. Okay, so this was the way it was. So it is. So if you conclude Ayyankali, this section on Ayyankali, so it is very different. You know, it is not like as we think, a very innovative kind of struggles for the specific kind of problems that they were facing. Okay, very innovative methods they adopted. Okay, and then then this is the second part is about Poikayil Yohannan. So what about the timing? Can I know something about the timing, Vidya ji?
10 minutes more, sir.
Okay, then I have to just do this Poikayil Yohannan part also. Then I have to conclude without speaking about Narayana Guru.
No?
Okay, Narayana Guru. Okay, I can tell you in brief. Okay, so this is actually Poikayil Yohannan. He was among the Christian Dalits. So he joined the Marthoma Church. Marthoma Church is a reformist movement, Protestant, indigenous Protestant movement in Kerala. And but then he faced discrimination within the community. Poikayil Yohannan, 1879 to 1939. So this is later than Ayyankali. No, Ayyankali was also, he lived till 1941. Yeah. So almost same period. So this was against the domination by the Savarna Christians. And he started a movement called Pratyaksha Raksha Deva Sabha, PRDS, a Church of God for Worldly Salvation. That was the movement that he led. So it was a kind of liberation theology, indigenous liberation theology that he organized. And he was attacked several times by Savarna Christians. But then he was maintaining a bunch of 18 trained bodyguards. Okay. And they held their meetings at Maraman, and Savarna Christians used to attack. And Vettiyad Lahala, Lahala is riot. Okay, Adi Lahala, that is, the lowest section of society, was, so they call it as riot, but actually it was the upper caste Christians they were attacking, and then this was counter violence by them.
Hello, Dr. Gilbert, sir. Sorry to disturb you.
Yeah.
So you may take your time, sir. Please have time. Speak freely.
Okay.
Not 10 minutes only.
Okay.
Okay.
And then
just a minute, Gilbert.
Yeah.
You take as much at your time. This is all new thing.
Okay.
Please don't. Yeah, explain us in detail.
Yeah. Okay. After Poikayil Yohannan, I want to take a little 2 minutes break because when I sit continuously, I get some back pain.
Okay.
So only 2 minutes break after this Poikayil Yohannan.
Okay, okay.
This PRDS, that is Pratyaksha Raksha Deva Sabha, that is the movement for worldly salvation. This was a movement which he started within Christianity. He started this movement, which is different from the indigenous Marthoma movement, that is, the Protestant movement. This is not the European Protestant movement. This is an indigenous Protestant movement, Marthoma movement. And this person was feeling that, they were getting discriminated even there, and therefore he started a separate movement. Okay, and what were the demands? Demands were to give land to the landless, to give school admission for the oppressed castes, so land, education, and reservation in government jobs. The same kind of demands which are presently raised by the scheduled caste people in Kerala and elsewhere. The same kind of demands are there. Okay, so the social reality has not changed much, I feel. So he was called, his original name was Kumaran. When he converted to Christianity, it was he adopted the name Yohannan, that is John in English. And locally, he was also called Appachan, that is, the local name. Okay, so Poikayil is his house name. So there are some Malayalam sources which I used, and one of the prominent ones is historian THP Chantaraseri, Ayyankali, about Ayyankali, the biography and so on, which he did. Okay, and then Ayyankali, this one, Poikayil Yohannan, I did not do very long. So this was a period of epoch of social transformation, and because this was in response to the initiation of commodity production under colonialism, particularly in the plantations, the rise of an English-educated middle class, the development of transport and communications like railways. So, and most importantly, the educated middle class. Okay, and you can find a complex interplay between material conditions and on the one hand, and the culture and agency of the people fighting for their rights. Okay, and the age-old practices of untouchability were no longer suited for the new society. Okay, so once Narayana Guru was traveling by train in the early morning, and somebody asked him, Yeda Jadi. Somebody sitting opposite to him asked him, Yeda Jadi. They used to ask directly, what is the caste? What caste are you from? Then he asked him, Kandittu Manasilayille. That means, did you not understand by looking at me? Then he said, no. Then Narayana Guru retorted, if you did not understand by looking at me, even if I tell you, how will you understand? Okay, so Narayana Guru's theory was that all human beings belong to one caste, and therefore this was that question was irrelevant. But he was a very soft-spoken person, so he retorted like this. So this was revealing how the change in society was actually not suitable. The old norms and values were not suitable for the new society with new technology and so on. So this was more or less non-violent movements, but there were riots, there were violent suppression, and then counter-violence by the oppressed castes. Okay, so this was a kind of, so the kind of the argument of economic determinism by some Marxists. The K. Venu had written in his book. K. Venu is a former Naxalite. So he had written in his book, The Democratic Conception of a Communist. He had written that because the Marxists in Kerala had come from the anti-caste social reform movement background. They were able to have more sensitivity towards the issues of Dalits and untouchables and so on. Whereas in Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra, the Marxists were confined to the cities because they failed to address the issues of caste, which were the typical specificities of the Indian situation. So that is the reason why in Kerala, the Marxists became more popular and they were more successful. Okay, I think that is a well taken point, which actually this point was criticized by EMS Namboodiripad. Okay, yeah. So this is actually about Narayana Guru and Ayyankali. No, sorry, Ayyankali and Poikayil Yohannan. I have another PPT about Narayana Guru, which I will briefly cover after I take a short break. Can I take a short break, or you want to come in with the questions now?
No, take a short break. No problem.
Okay.
We will wait.
Yeah, please. Just a short break, 2-3 minutes.
Okay.
Please. Thank you. Hello.
Hello, sir.
I'm back.
Okay,
So,
sir. Welcome.
Now I'll stop sharing this screen,
Okay.
and I will start this Narayana Guru's slide. Okay, you have stopped it. You have stopped it. Okay.
Wait. Stop, sir.
You stopped it. Huh? Okay.
Okay.
I will share the other one. Okay. So this is again, continuing with the ideas of Narayana Guru and his role in Kerala society. So this is Narayana Guru. So his period of life was 1855 to 1928. Okay, and he was from the Irava caste in Tiruvidampur, and his active period of public life was 1888 to 1928. Okay, in 1888 he did the Shivalinga Pradishta, and in 19
Gilbert,
yes sir,
if you can finish by 7:30, we get half an hour for discussion.
definitely.
Is that
definitely.
okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, very
Yeah.
very fine.
Yeah.
Okay, and it was so it is not an exaggeration to say that he laid the foundation for modernity in Kerala. Okay, and his ideas. In fact, I started studying about Narayana Guru because I found the similarities in his ideas with the Enlightenment notions of universalism, rationalism, progress, toleration, and even secularism, in the sense of separation of religion from politics, religion from community affairs, because they were involved in community politics in those days. So that was a period of community-based social reform movements. And every caste or community was trying to reform within their own caste or community. And Poikayil, this I have spoken about, I will skip it. And yeah, this also I have spoken about. And there were some other people whom Brahmananda Swami, that was in Malabar, northern Kerala. Pandit Karupan, these names I have spoken about. These were the reformers during that time. Okay, so then we come to, now we had this 2018-19, there was a mass protest against the entry of women into Sabarimala temple and so on. So it shows the importance of these ideas of syncretism and anti-caste and religious amity of Narayana Guru. So this I have covered in the other PPT, that the Pradishta he did, and right from the beginning he was clear about what he wanted to do, without differences of caste, without enmities of creed. That is a speciality. Okay. So then, it is not only against caste, it is against communalism also. That is very clear. Okay, and so Vivekananda visited Kerala, and Vivekananda visited prominent people like Dr. Palpu, Chattambi Swami, and so what was the message given by Vivekananda to Dr. Palpu and Chattambi Swami? He said that India is a deeply religious country, and if you want to lift India up, then you have to do it by holding on to the handle of religion. And therefore, he advised them to organize themselves under the guidance of a reputed spiritual guru. And Narayana Guru was a very reputed spiritual guru because he had become famous with the Shivalinga Pradishta, and his ideas were also very syncretic and anti-caste. So they approached Dr. Palpu and Kumaranasan. They approached Narayana Guru, and like that, in 1903, they started this movement called SNDP, Sri Narayana Dharma Paripalana Yoga. Okay, and they wanted admission of only Yedavas into that. Okay, and right from the beginning, so 1888, he installed the Shivlinga Pradishta. In 1903, he was in a talk with one of the persons, Krishna Asan. Narayana Guru was saying that all this worship may one day become unnecessary because they were seeing fast social change during those times. Unlike what we see today, we are going back. So then he says that when such a thing happens, they could use these buildings, these temple buildings and all, for some other purposes. Anyway, we haven't wasted the money of people, isn't it? That is the way he said. So he was clear about what he was trying to do. And he said his notion of temples was quite different from the traditional notion of temples. So he did not want temples which are dark places. He wanted a very airy place where people will come after taking bath, so that they also cultivate cleanliness. There should be an educational institution nearby. There should be a garden nearby. Okay, so and then the money received for offerings should be used for the benefit of the poor people. Okay, and you should give industrial training to children in the nearby educational institution. So very advanced kind of ideas that he had. Okay, and initially, Narayana Guru installed the Hindu gods like Shiva, Subramanya, Saraswati Devi, because they were following that, and gradually he wanted to bring them to the Advaita Vedanta's philosophy. So later on, he started installing mirror Pratishta, or Pratishta of Pratishta. You understand, consecration. Pratishta of lamp which is burning. So like this, it is very, very interesting. In 1914, by which time he had already changed his mode of pratishtas and all. Somebody brought a stone which can be used as a Shivalinga Pratishta, and then he asked him very sarcastically, "What is this for? Is it good to be boiled and eaten?" He asked like that. So he basically wanted people to come slowly into an advanced mode of thinking. Okay, to Advaita Vedanta philosophy. Okay, and then there was some kavu, that is mini temple in the midst of jungle where the so-called lower gods are worshipped. The Dalit gods are worshipped. Those he wanted them to clear it. Actually, they are biodiversity hotspots. He wanted them to clear it and start a school there. Okay, that is what he said. But this was long back. There was no mainstream environmental consciousness in those days. And if they insist, he says, let them have a small temple. But then the temples are good for cultivating cleanliness, and then they are good to provide education to people. Let them acquire knowledge. That is the remedy to better them. So this is the way he used to speak. Okay, and what was his main concern in his own words? His main concern in his own words was, we should better human beings. I mean, human beings should better themselves. So what were the virtues that he wanted? Cleanliness, purity of mind, education, industrial progress, fraternity, and service to the poor. Okay, these are the values that he wanted to have. So he made a mirror pratishtha, in which on the mirror he wrote Om. So mirror is actually to convey that, Tattvamasi, that is, you are that. That is, the Brahma, Jivatma and Paramatma are one and the same. So he simplified the Advaita Vedanta by saying that the waves and the ocean are the same. Okay, the waves, if they don't understand that it is actually the ocean, that is a false consciousness. So that is a way he tried to convince people that about Advaita. Okay. Then so this is the kind of idea of temples that he had. So the people like Arun Shuri, who speak about Narayana Guru as a person who consecrated so many temples, they don't understand what is the kind of temple, what is the conception of the temple that he had. Okay, now the Vakbatanandan, there is another Swami who was an Advaiti from Malabar. Malabar was more advanced because it is directly under colonial rule. They did not have that much caste discrimination also. So he asked, you are an Advaiti, why are you installing idols? Then he says, you see, it is not for us. It is for the people. Okay. So then the conversation did not continue. Okay. So this is the way he used to convince people. So then the main slogans of Narayana Guru: one caste, one religion, one God for human beings. So this is actually derived from the Shaiva Siddhanta philosopher Tiruvalluvar. This was already there. It is not original of Narayana Guru. So this is a very universalistic principle. It is like liberty, equality, fraternity. Okay, quite similar to that. One caste, one religion, one God for human beings. So, and then each of these have meanings actually. So then the second most important slogan was, whatever be the religion, it is enough that human beings better themselves. So, which means that if it helps for the advancement of human beings, the spiritual as well as material progress of human beings, then that religion is good. All the rest of the religion should be discarded. That is the kind of idea that Narayana Guru had. And then he also had a popular injunction: do not ask, say, or think of caste. So today in Kerala, the anti-caste movement says that we have to speak about caste. In the context of untouchability, Narayana Guru gave this slogan, but today we have to speak about caste. Only then we can fight against discrimination and fight for rights. Okay, and then he gave, in 1918, he gave a slogan: organize and grow strong, get enlightened by education. So this is a more political slogan. Okay, yeah, this I have already said. So what is the meaning of, so he had actually taken the framework of the ideas of Shankaracharya. Okay, but then he radically changed the content of that perspective. Okay, so he has got his this poem called Atmopadesha Satakam and Jati Nirnayam. So he says that man's humanity marks out his human caste, just as bovinity proclaims the kind of a cow. Okay, so Brahminhood or some other caste identity, they are not like that. Okay, so that is the way he says. So that is this idea about one caste. Okay, and then he says, whoever, I mean, all those that embrace each other and give birth to progeny belong to one species. So the human beings are like that. The horses and donkeys are like that, you know, like that he says. So this is the way he spoke about it. And he supported interdining by Sahodar Nayyapan, who was organizing interdining ceremonies. And then he had actually, he had said that intermarriages are also okay. He had said intermarriages, interdining, both are okay. But he said, in the talk with Gandhi, he was saying that the oppressed caste people, they should acquire education and wealth. Okay, it is not necessary to have interdining and intermarriage, because all human beings are, you know, similar according to him. You know? So that is a kind of. So Gandhi was supporting the Varna system in the name of Varnashrama Dharma, but then, you know, he says he opposes that in the conversation with Gandhi, and he says that, you know, actually the essence is the same. So Gandhi said, you know, there are small leaves and big leaves in the mango tree in the courtyard. So similarly, there are in the human beings also there are hierarchies. So then Narayana Guru says that, you know, you taste both the big leaf and the small leaf, and you will find that both taste the same. Okay, the essence is the underlying essence is the same. Okay, that is the way he challenged Gandhi's ideas, conservative ideas of Gandhi. Okay, and he says caste degenerates human beings. Therefore, it is unnecessary. There is no caste. Thinking that there is caste is foolishness. So this is the way he says, speaks about caste. Okay, and he speaks more about secular freedom of people. Okay, so and then, you know, taking the philosophy of Adi Shankara, those of you who are from philosophy will be interested in this. Shankara makes a distinction between Vyavaharika Satyam, that is phenomenal truth, and Paramarthika Satyam, that is the ultimate truth, or the essence of the truth. Okay, so like that, you know, Adi Shankara gave his philosophy of Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. But then Narayana Guru said there is no duality between Vyavaharika Satyam and Paramarthika Satyam. Okay, there is a phenomenal reality, and the ultimate reality or the essential reality are actually same. There is a new non-duality between these. So Narayana Guru's Advaita was more Advaitic than Shankara's Advaita. Okay, so like this. So each of these, one caste, one religion, one God for human beings, they are actually having philosophical meanings, which he explains, which I will not go into. And Matam about religious conversion, he says, Matam in Malayalam means religion and also opinion. And he says that for thinking people, Matam keeps changing. Okay, so there is no need of, if you're speaking about community conversion and religious conversion are different. Okay, that is what he says. So if you want to convert for community, for secular freedom, if you want to convert, then okay, go ahead with that. Okay, but I don't want to say that you need to convert for the religious purpose. Okay, because every religion has got things that are good and things that are bad, in the sense that, you know, that help the progress of human beings, that helps the regress of human beings, and therefore he took that kind of a position. Okay, so he was actually not against conversion of community, but then he said that don't confuse conversion of community with the internal conversion, that is, you know, your gradual conversion in every thinking individual. Okay, which you can do if you want. If you lose your Christian faith, you can convert to Hindu religion or any other religion. He was not against that. Okay. And he feels that, you know, all these religious leaders, they have given principles according to the times and the requirements of their times. Okay. And there is no need of having any ado or, you know, fight about that. Okay. So this is the way he speaks. Is not the advice of Christ good? Okay, like that he asks a person who was supporting Buddhist religion. Okay, so that is his kind of idea. I will not go into detail because yeah, on conversion. Then he had one question that if he was asked to, you know, he went to support the freedom struggle under the leadership of Gandhi when Gandhi came to Kerala, but he had a doubt. The doubt was that if Sanatanis come to power, if the British go away from India and the Sanatanis come to power, then the so-called eternal religion, that is, you know, the Hindu religion, then will the Chandalas get justice? That was his question when he was asked to support the freedom struggle by the leaders who were also part of SNDP. They were Congress leaders like this person, you know, Bhaskaran, whose name I mentioned. So then he had this doubt. So now today we are seeing the rightward shift in the Indian politics, and I think Narayana Guru's apprehension is actually coming true. So the main thing about Narayana Guru was that he addressed the main problem, Mukhya Prashnam, in his society, that is Tiruvidankar society, that was the caste issue, that is untouchability, unapproachability, unseeability, and so on. Okay, so he was very important because, you know, in Tiruvidankar society the land issues were less important because the Maharaja had already given land on lease to the tenants, and later on the ownership was also given, but the caste issue was very prominent. So that is why Narayana Guru advocated these kind of ideas, and we are finding that, you know, that Narayana Guru's ideas are still very relevant because they are very syncretic ideas. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So very syncretic ideas, and therefore it is good. So in conclusion, I just want to say like this, that what is the prospect? I don't have PPT for that. I will just speak without the PPT. So I'll stop sharing this. So in conclusion, I want to say that as far as the anti-caste movements in Kerala are concerned today, three things are important. One is education, which they are demanding. They were denied education. Secondly, resources, mainly land. And thirdly, mainly land. So they were demanding land rights in Mutanga and Chengara. Okay, Mutanga, the Adivasis under the leadership of C.K. Janu and Geetanandan, they demanded land. And there was firing on them in 2003, beginning of 2003. In 2008 and 9, the mainly scheduled caste agitators, they struggled for land at Mutanga. In Chengara, in Pathanamthitta district. So that is the second demand. And the third demand, I think, is political power. So in this context, you know, the communication which I had with the Laha Gopalan sir during the Chengara agitation, he was saying that unifying the Hindu Dalits and the Christian Dalits together in the same agitation. That was the greatest achievement. Because in Kerala, politics is organized along community lines. The Christians and Muslims must vote for the UDF led by the Congress. And the Muslims and, the Hindu caste, particularly Iravas, they support the CPIM and CPI, the left parties, the LDF. So like this, you can find a distinction in the politics. There is an identity politics which operates. So this is where actually the Dalits and Adivasis are not able to come in. So they are not given the caste and community colleges. The aided colleges are funded by the government of Kerala. The funding is from the treasury, but they are not getting jobs. I have my Dalit friends who are PhD from JNU, but still unable to get a job in Kerala. They got job in big NGOs, international NGOs, but they are not unable to get a job in Kerala. That is because of this kind of discrimination on the basis of identity. So these are the three demands which Dalit movement and Adivasi movement in Kerala are demanding. And otherwise, the caste issue, apart from Dalits and Adivasis, Kerala is a more cohesive society because all the other castes have actually resolved the caste issue. But you can find, when you come to the land question, you can find Syrian Christians and Nayars having more land, Iravas having less land, and Dalits having no land, and Adivasis land being taken over or dispossessed. So this is the kind of thing. So these three demands, land, education, and thirdly, political power. All these three were denied to the oppressed castes. And this is also related to class. So it is an intersectional class politics, which will also speak about caste oppression that is required. It is the need of the hour. And in order to fight the Sanatanis, I think that was a concern of Narayana Guru. So I think we need to have Dalit Bahujan working people's perspective. Dalit Bahujan working people's perspective. So the majority construction by the Marxists, that is on the basis of class identity, and the majority construction by the Dalit Bahujans on the basis of caste identities have to actually come together. And then they have to address the issues of the human rights of frontier peoples of Kashmir and Northeast India, and the issues of women, particularly Dalit Bahujan women and sexual minorities. So this is the way I think the future should go on. Then actually we will be able to resist the Hindutva communalism, which may actually take over in the future, as it may also become, now what we are seeing is fascistic communalism, but eventually it can become communal fascism. And it has got a very clear Savarna character, which you people from Maharashtra know, because the Chitpavan Brahmins initiated this movement, and that Brahminical content is still there. Okay, I will conclude here because it's time also, and I will look for your questions. I think there are reactions in the chat box. I will look at it.
Thank you, Gilbert sir.
Thank you.
It was a really informative session for us, and you gave detailed overview about anti-caste movement in Kerala and movements led by Poikayil Yohannan, Ayyankali, and Narayana Guru, and the ideologies, philosophy, and assertion for equality and equal opportunity. And lastly, you mentioned the three demands mainly they are demanding: education, resources, and political power. So thank you so much. I invite Professor Sukhadeo Thorat sir to start the discussion.
Well, friends, so you will agree with me that this has been a very comprehensive lecture given by Gilbert. He prepared, and although we have given him 1 hour 20 minutes, he had to still hurry up his presentation because he has a lot of things to say. But I think we got what he wanted to say. And he has really brought out the diversity of the anti-caste movement, the Narayana Guru's contributions, Ayyankali's contributions, and the other person whose name I don't get.
Poikayil Yohannan.
Poikayil Yohannan,
Poikayil Yohannan. John.
Who started the anti-caste movement within Christianity. That is, the Dalit Christian converted, Dalit converted to Christianity. They used to face discrimination. This was very, very new to us and to the audience as such. And while this detailed discussion brings out the common problem that the untouchable face everywhere, the denial of education, the untouchability, landlessness, and opposition by the high caste for their education. There are specific issues of Kerala that he has brought out. I won't take much time, but I will just highlight. I think Ayyankali took up 3 issues. That is travel, there were restrictions on travel of scheduled caste, education, and the problem of women. In Peshwa, we know that the untouchable were required to hang the pot around the neck, the broom in the back, and the stick in the hand, so that they could remove the impression of their leg, and if they want to split on the ground, they can split in the pot, and the stick in the hand, so that they warn the high caste that untouchable is approaching. They should keep a proper distance. This we consider one of the most worst form of untouchability. But the Kerala has surpassed even Maharashtra. As Gilbert has rightly pointed out, that there was complete restriction on the untouchable. The untouchability means touch-me-notism, but there is also unseeability. That they should not, the sight of untouchable and the high caste should not meet. And if that sight is not to be met, Drishtine Bhrashtachar Hona. So if that is not to happen, then untouchable should not travel on the road. And so unseeability was a very, very, very serious problem in Kerala, that untouchable were not required to travel. I remember that when I wrote about the slavery of Kerala, I was a little surprised that the untouchable, those who used to sell some little thing, they will keep those things for sale on the road, and they will sit some half a furlong away from the road. So a person who is coming, he can pick up whatever he like and put the coin. That is because the high caste who is buying should not come in contact, but also should not see him. This is the worst form of untouchability that we can see anywhere in the world, or in India. Education, of course, you can see that the story is the same. That when the Britishers gave the education right to the untouchable, I had given you the example of a boy in Thorat who went to the school and he was denied admission in the public school. Here also is the same story. The princely state start the education institution, give admission to the untouchables, but the high caste opposed, and opposed violently. So much of struggle had to Ayyankali and other had to undertake to have an education. And when they start their own school, that was not also allowed to be started. It was burned down, as Gilbert has said so they build up the school again in the night. What a opposition. Nobody is denying the right of education were not denied to the Brahmin. But if the untouchable wanted to have a right of education on their own, that was also opposed by the high caste. And so if we see today, Dr. Hajare is very keen on that. If it's still today merit and the all kind of slogan that come in, they come indirectly to oppose the education and massification of education. So that example of Maharashtra and Karnataka we find in Kerala in a worse form. But the worst form, again, you see that untouchables women were not allowed to cover their upper part of their bodies. They were not allowed to cover with the cloth. They were asked to cover with stone. And Ayyankali then raised a lot of movement. Can there be any worse kind of untouchability and exploitation that you can see in the Brahmanism as such? So he has brought out and then Ayyankali to lot agitation. They throw the stone away, and the pile of stone was 6 meters or 6 foot. That is what Gilbert said. So finally, I think at some stage they got the right to cover their upper portion. Of course, the Christian started the movement for education. It was similar to that of Dr. Ambedkar, that there should be educational right and the right to job and legislature. This the Christian leader who started this movement. And of course, the Narayana Guru was the biggest figure who really took point with Shankaracharya, point with Mahatma Gandhi, and differed with them. And the single message that Gilbert has rightly given, that he believed in one humanity, talking of one caste. He was not talking of caste, he was talking of one people being one human being, and therefore they should have equal right. And in that he made some, I think he was advised by Vivekananda. Vivekananda has, when he saw in Kerala, because he came from Bengal, Bengal was slightly liberal. And when he saw the casteism and untouchability in in Kerala, he used a very strong word, and Gilbert has put it here: lunatic asylum. Vedanta, this is a madhouse. The kind of untouchability was practiced in Kerala, it was of extreme form, and only the madness could explain that kind of untouchability. And he advised Narayana Guru that if you want to have a social movement, it should be through the language of religion. Vivekananda was clever. It also happened in the reform came in Christianity through the language of religion. The Protestant criticized the Catholic, and that is how Protestantism came in Christianity. Christian world. Similarly, he asked him to use the religious language. And therefore, Narayana Guru talked about one caste, one temple. He was basically talking of one humanity with equal right. And I think Gilbert has really brought out. I think he also is very right that the academician like Shauri, they are not academicians, they are journalists. They don't understand. With their poor knowledge, they criticize Narayana Guru, that he was constigating, he was destroying temples. And Shauri also wrote a book on Babasaheb Ambedkar, worshipping false god, without any understanding, because Shauri lacks scholarship and deep understanding of what Dr. Ambedkar was saying or what Narayana Guru was saying. But anyway, I think he has brought out. Friends, I will say that this is a wonderful speech, and we really got to know what was the caste problem in Kerala, what is the caste problem today. I would like to ask Gilbert if he can sometime later first take the question by others, that was there any connection between because these are contemporary period of Dr. Ambedkar, was there any connection with Dr. Ambedkar movement or Dr. Ambedkar? And this thing that he is silent, and that is the caste discrimination in Kerala society. Because at the end, Gilbert focused on education, resources, and political power. That is correct. But also, I think the issue of caste discrimination still persists in Kerala society. You can reflect on these two issues: caste discrimination in Kerala society and connection of Dr. Ambedkar with these people. Because when I was in Kerala, when I gave a lecture, I am a chairman of the K.R. Narayanan chair in Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam. So I go quite often to give a lecture. Sometimes they mention me that the Marxists try to, in a way, very indirectly block the entry of Dr. Ambedkar, so that the caste issue doesn't come in for discussion. Okay, I stop it here and let us go to the answer question. Vidya, you can take from the, or Akshay, whosoever is taking first those questions which are there on the question box, and then any individual can ask.
Okay, sir. So, question from Dr. Narendra Nagarwal. Really thought-provoking analysis about caste structure and social revolution in Kerala. Sir, could you please shed some light on caste-based discrimination within Mopala Muslims and how the Muslims fought a battle for equality in social economic context?
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Actually, within Mapula Muslims, there is no caste discrimination as far as I know. But between Mapula Muslims and other Muslims, there is caste discrimination. So I was talking to one Mapula Muslim. He's from Calicut, Kozhikode. So he was saying that, you know, the other Muslims, they were Cherumar early. Cherumar means, you know, little people earlier, and they continue to remain Cherumar when it comes to marriage and all that. The Mapulas never, Mapulas are actually Arab mixed population. Arabs and the local population mixed together. The Arabs came for trading in Kerala, and they got intermingled with the local population, and the Mapula community was created. So they never intermingled with Cherumar. Cherumar, that is how it is called in northern Kerala. So there is a discrimination between Mapula Muslims and other Muslims, and the Muslims in say Palakkad district. Professor Kunyaman, you might know Professor Kunyaman. Professor Kunyaman was saying that in Palakkad district, the Mapula Muslims discriminate against Dalits. They discriminate so badly. So that is what he was saying. So this is also true about Syrian Christians historically, but nowadays, you know, Syrian Christians, you know, there is a commercial logic which operates. Say, for example, among the Christians of Kottayam, so they care more for money actually. So there actually caste plays a lesser role among Syrian Christians. But among Mapulas of Malabar, this caste is still dominant identity. Not within Mapulas, but between Mapulas and other Muslims. Particularly when it comes to marriage and all that. This is what I know. So it is the Indian social system that way. So it is cutting across religions actually. It is there among within Christianity also, but then not to that extent as it is there in the Hindu religion. So my friend, you know, Rajesh Kamath from MG University was saying that, see, among the Hindu castes, it is like, you know, they will look at the body language, they will look at the way you speak, and they will identify your caste. Okay, but it is not so among the Christians and the Mapulas, Syrian Christians and Mapulas. For them, you know, it is just, you know, okay, you are Dalit or, you know, scheduled caste. Okay, you occupy a lower position in the social ladder. That's all. They will not go into the nitty-gritties of the cultural subtleties. Okay, that kind of a difference is there between Syrian Christians and Muslims on Mapulas on the one hand, and the Hindu caste on the other. That is what I can say.
Thank you, sir. Now question from Vishnu Priya. Wonderful talk, sir. Sir, when we use the word slavery in the context of the 19th century Kerala, is it exactly the same kind of slavery that we see in transatlantic slavery?
No, it is not exactly the same kind of. That is why we have to look at specificities. The essay by Mao Zedong on contradiction. He says qualitatively different contradictions need to be addressed in qualitatively different ways, through qualitatively different methods. So I think we need to take that kind of advice. So this is a different kind of slavery. Not all of the Pulayas or not all of the Parayas or Kuravar, they were slaves, but they were agrarian slaves. It is actually slavery combined with, there was a system of buying and selling, which actually defined slavery. That was there, but at the same time, there were elements of bonded labor. It is not completely slavery. It was bonded labor, but then there was also buying and selling. So this is the kind of slavery that was there. And there are some books written by, say, for example, S. Uma Devi about slavery in Travancore. And also writers like T.H.P. Chantaraseri, their writings are more in Malayalam. So about slavery, so those kind of works can be actually relied upon for understanding the difference. But it was not the same kind of slavery which was there in the West.
Yeah, but the most important book of untouchable slavery is by Sanal Mohan, which has come. So there he almost declared untouchable as a slave caste as a whole.
Okay.
And wherein you have a classical feature of slavery, like sale and purchase of the people. First thing is to consider the slave as a property, just like any other property. So you could sell the slave, rent out the slave. Secondly, the children could be divided. The children are sold to somebody else. Wife is sold to somebody else. Husband is sold to somebody else. And of course the atrocities, terrible violence, cutting of nose, cutting of ear. So he said that the slavery in Kerala was worse than the Western slavery, as a matter of fact. There is other lady also who has written a book in English now. I have read only 2 English books. So yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Now question from Prashant Bansod, sir. Sir, can you explain in detail why Marx is successful in Kerala but not in Maharashtra?
Marxism is not successful in Kerala. Now, the present under Pinarayi Vijayan, I think they are turning towards right wing. They are turning into right wing policies. They are adopting right wing policies. So, but then for a time, Marxism was popular in Kerala, and that is what I was actually trying to explain, citing K. Venu. So K. Venu says in his book, The Democratic Conception of a Communist, he says that since they were sensitive, I think it will involve a little repetition. Since they were sensitive, these people came, the Communist Party members, they came from SNDP or other anti-caste reform movements, and therefore they were sensitive about the caste issue, and therefore they were able to address the issue. They were able to strike a chord with the local people. But in Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu, the communists, the Marxists, they were confined to trade unions in the cities because they failed to address the caste dimension. Okay, they were not sensitive enough to understand the caste dimension. So that is I think one important reason why Marxism became popular in Kerala. But then EMS Namboodiripad makes fun of it by saying that it is not by catching the tail of the Adakrita Jadi movements. Adakrita means you are low by your activities, that you have become. We have built up the Communist Party. We have built up Communist Party by organizing the working class and peasantry like that. So he says like that. But then this point which K. Venu has said, I think that is very important. We have to see the the specificities of the Indian situation. As Thorat sir was saying, Sanal Mohan's work is there. I could not get the time to go through Sanal Mohan's work. That is why I did not make a reference to that work. But that is a very important work. Yeah, I will stop. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Thangraj asking, when you were discussing about the Izawa struggle, you have not discussed about the Periyar. Please explain the Periyar role in that struggle.
Actually, I have not studied much about Periyar. It is from Tamil Nadu, and Periyar's movement also might have influenced Kerala's movement. And Periyar had come to Kerala also, and actually Periyar was not averse to conversion to Islam and all that. Okay, in order to alleviate caste inequalities and caste oppression. But to tell you in detail about Periyar, I am not actually equipped. So people from Tamil Nadu will be able to say it better. And the person who asked the question, he is from Tamil Nadu. He may be able to enlighten a little more about Periyar's movement. It was a very radical movement, and it was different from that of Narayana Guru. And so Narayana Guru and Poikayil Kumaran or Poikayil Yohannan, they fought militantly, but Narayana Guru was a very peaceful, soft-spoken person. But the social process was not. For example, in 1904, there was a industrial exhibition organized by 1904 or 5 I think. They organized an industrial exhibition in Kollam. And so after that, the Idavas, the backward caste, the present backward caste, that time they were untouchables, they became more assertive. And then there was violence by the Nayars. And then, then there was counter violence. So the social process was by no means, peaceful. But Narayana Guru was a soft-spoken person. His method was like that. He was actually, he believed, I think, in subverting from within. Okay, that is, when he spoke about temple, the kind of temple that he was speaking about was entirely different. And when he was speaking about Tirtha Yatra, that is pilgrimage, the kind of pilgrimage that he was speaking about was very different. So he was saying that, okay, let them, okay, if they want to have pilgrimage, let them come to Kollam, and then people will give speeches on education, on religion, on spirituality, and also on industrial training. All these kind of advanced topics will be spoken about. So that is a kind of pilgrimage that he had. So not the religious pilgrimage of the traditional kind, which he was advocating. So there is a lot of difference. The specificities of Periyar's movement, I'm unable to say. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you, sir. No. It is deliberate on part of the ruling class to deny SCs and STs right to own land, because one day this will empower them and they will fight against their oppressors on equal field, which is not acceptable to the Savarnas of not only Kerala but also any state in India.
Yeah, that is true. Actually, the anti-caste movement has, including Ambedkar's, has not focused sufficiently on the resource question, particularly the land question. And if you look at anywhere in India, you will find that the caste structures and the class structures were intimately interconnected. In Kerala, you can find there are studies by T.C. Varghese. That is a book published in 1970. That is a situation prior to the land reforms. Or Ajit, a Naxalite leader in Kerala. His actual name is Kannambally Murali. So he has published a book, Bhumi Jati Bandhanam in Malayalam. There is land, caste, and bondage. So they all say about how caste and class are interconnected in the sense that land holdings. So if you look at land holdings, you can find the class dimension of caste, and the Dalits were historically denied land. The Adivasis had occupancy rights over land, but they did not have title deeds. And then subsequently, it led to dispossession from the land. So the land question is very important. And in Kerala, when they were given 10 cents of land in the villages for homestead, and 5 cents in the municipalities, and 3 cents in the corporations, then that itself gave some kind of self-respect to the Dalits, and landless Adivasis also. And similarly, when we talk to people, there was one Bihar Dalit Vikas Samiti, whose leader I was talking to him. Then he was saying that some people, they burn down the houses of Dalits, and then they don't have any land. They want to evict, they want to capture this land. Similarly, in other parts of India also. So land question is important, and even in UP during the time of Mayavati, there were some land movements in UP, but they did not want to highlight that. But there was a friendly regime, so they did not fire on them, and they might have allotted this land to them. Bijulal from MG University was working on one of these movements in Uttar Pradesh. So I think definitely the land question is very important. In Kerala, the issue of plantation land is very serious, because tens of thousands of acres of land is held by plantations illegally. There are three. I had studied on this. I studied this in my postdoc, and there are three categories of land: lease expired plantation land, and encroached land, that is excess land. In euphemistic terms, they call it as excess land. That is land of forests which was encroached by plantations. And then illegal land. Illegal land means completely illegal, not even leased out. That kind of land also. Illegal documents. So Tata is holding around 1 lakh plus acres of land in Munnar in Kottayam district. Similarly, Harrison Malayalam Plantations is holding land all over Kerala. It is also similar, not so much as Tata. The largest integrated plantation is by Tata, and then Harrison Malayalam all over Kerala. And it was Chengara movement was actually in a Harrison Malayalam land. And the land question is very important to focus on, I think. And some of the castes like Bedar in southern Kerala, or Panir, Adir, and Katunaikar, 3 tribes in Wayanad, they are absolutely landless, and they have only this homestead land which was given during land reforms. And they have to, if they have to bury their dead, they have to break their kitchens, and sometimes they have to remove their toilets and then bury their dead. They follow this custom of burying, not burning. So this is actually very important to address. So proverbial denial of the 6 feet of land to bury the dead. So that is also there in Kerala. That is the underside of Kerala's development experience. So which needs to be addressed. The land question is very important. I agree with the question.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Again, question from Vishnu Priya. Sir, what do you think about Brahmananda Shiv Yogi's Ananta Matham's role as an anti-caste movement?
Brahmananda Shiva Yogi, Anantamatham was a work written by some writer from Brahmin background in Bengal, isn't it? Anandamatham. Anandamath. Huh? So that was actually speaking about communal riots and all that.
Sir, I'm talking about that Anand. So he established this Alathur Ashramam, right? So he had this idea of a religion called Religion of Eternal Bliss, Ananda Madam. Like,
Okay.
That's what I was referring to, sir.
Sorry, I have not studied this, Vishnu Priya. I don't know much about this. This is in is it in Malabar?
Brahma Swami Yogi's Alathur Ashramam is near Palakkad, I think. Near.
Okay, Brahmananda Sevayogi. Okay.
Brahmananda Swami Shiva Yogis. Yeah.
Okay, is he the one who started this cooperative movement, which is very successful in Kerala?
I do not know, sir. I haven't heard about it. I only came across some of his works and I found it very interesting, but I couldn't find much critical works on him as far as I have seen.
Okay. So I think, the movements in Malabar, I had actually focused on the movement in southern Kerala, that is Tiruvidampur, where all these three people were there, all the three people whom I mentioned. And the caste issue was the strongest, the most oppression, the highest oppression of caste. The caste oppression was there in southern Kerala. In northern Kerala, it was directly under colonialism, and therefore they were not discriminated that much. And also, there was a Mysore interlude. There was a time of during the time of Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan, that is 18th century. There was a lot of conversion to Islam, and the caste inequalities were actually alleviated to a large extent. At least untouchability was not there. The land issues and all remained, but still, they could take education, they could take employment in government services, which was not there in southern Kerala. That is why these movements emerged in southern Kerala. And I have not studied much about the Brahmananda Sevayogi's movement, so I am unable to comment much on this, Vishnu Priya. Sorry.
Okay, sir. And no problem, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Vibal Thorat, ma'am. Ma'am.
Yeah. I appreciate the presentation of Gilbert, and really brought out so many issues in within 1 hour and 20 minutes. I have a question about the land movement in Kerala. Recent years, C.K. Janu, you also mentioned her name. She was giving the leadership for the land reform and land acquired for the Adivasi people, Adivasi and Dalit. And it was suppressed by the communist government for a long time, and then arrested almost all the leaders who are involved in this land movement. Can you elaborate this? Why on the one side the communist regime already said that it is they support the land and caste discrimination, caste eradication, and on another side they are arresting the people, the leaders like C.K. Janu, because she is really a towering personality and in Kerala. And finally, she was she has joined BJP. So this is another turn of the land issue, land movement. This is very very disturbing for us who are really looking at the land issue and land movement in India. So can you just elaborate on this issue?
Thank you, Vimal ma'am. In fact, the Mutanga movement was suppressed by A.K. Antony's government. A.K. Antony was Congress. It was a Congress-led United Democratic Front government. That is actually the centrist government. CPM, both have become centrist now, but it's only a slight difference, in the discourses. So actually, 2003 firing on the Mutanga land movement by Adivasis was done by A.K. Antony. But C.K. Janu was actually a member of, was part of the CPIM's movement.
Yes.
But yes. she got disillusioned with that, and then she joined. She joined with some NGOs, the South Zone Adivasi Forum. South Zone Adivasi Forum organized. She got support from them and organized the first movement at Panavalli. Panavalli. That was, I think, sometime in 1993 or something like that. Huh? Okay.
Yes, during
so that was the first movement.
10 years, 9 or 10 years before. Yeah.
Yeah. Then after that, she was actually trying for different options. Then there was another person, Salim Kumar, who was leading this movement. But Salim Kumar's movement was only focusing on the caste dimension, completely, only caste dimension. So his discourse is completely caste dimension, and there was no class dimension. So then she was actually a little disillusioned with that also. Then Geethanandan came. Geethanandan. So until recently, Geethanandan was leading the movement. Mutanga movement was also led by Geethanandan. And Mutanga movement was actually a peaceful movement. But police fired on peacefully protesting agitators, and several people died. Nobody knows how many died, and that is very atrocious. But I met Geethanandan. I was talking to him. Then he was telling that on the first anniversary of Mutanga, when I met Geethanandan at Secretariat, there was a protest remembering Mutanga. So he was telling me that people should think why this Dalit Adivasi movement is allying with the same people who fired on them and killed them, and not with CPIM, which is actually speaking about the class struggle and all that. Why is it like that? People should understand, because the Congress has got some liberal space, but the CPIM does not have any liberal space. You can always negotiate with the Congress people, but you are unable to negotiate with CPIM people. So that is the reality. So although they speak about class struggle and all that, they speak about pure class struggles. They don't speak about intersectional class struggles. They don't relate class with caste or tribe or gender and so on. So their discourse is very chauvinistic that way. There is some change with BJP becoming dominant. Some change is there, slow change is there, but still they are very chauvinistic. They are also quite violent and intolerant. I mean, to be frank, that is a reality on the ground that we see. And that is why people are disillusioned. And now under Pinarayi Vijayan, actually, they are taking up projects like K-Rail, which is environmentally disastrous. It is actually taking a rightward turn. The communist is only in name. This is very unfortunate for Kerala. The left movement will not be there. The CPI looks better than CPIM. There are feminists, there are Dalit activists working in CPI. It has got some liberal space. It is not so Stalinist, but the CPIM is, quite Stalinist and quite intolerant.
Another story, not story. It's a write-up. Came in NewsClick or some other newspaper. A film recently, a film directed by some producer, and he shows in that film a Pariya girl first time came out from her Hamlet, which is she's because this unseeability concept is still there, and the girl came out by mistake. She was just wandering in the jungle, in the forest, and some boys, some youth was there nearby. They caught her and then raped and murdered. So this is that is I am referring the film, but it is actually happened in Kerala. There are many Dalit girls who comes from Paraya or which is the another caste, Paraya and
Pulaya.
So I don't remember whether she was from Pulaya or Paraya, but unseeability is still exists in Kerala, and many girls and especially the minor girls and women are sexually harassed and raped, gang raped, and then killed. So where does Kerala stands apart from the movements, the very, very powerful movements of for eradication of caste and land acquiring movement, and the feminist movement also there, very, very much about the women's right, and CPIM itself talk about the women's rights, but still this caste system, the very, very inhuman and in its nature, and very very unseeability is still there, exists there. I am referring through the film which is shown, which is came in within 1 or 2 years before.
Okay. I have not watched this film. I have watched the other film, Papilyu Buddha. This was about the land issues, the land struggle of scheduled castes and Adivasis. But unseeability, I think, is not a widespread phenomenon in Kerala. It may be very, very rare, and there are some tribes, very minuscule tribes, which are like particularly vulnerable tribes. There are 1 or 2 of them in Kerala, and I forgot the name of one tribe. There is a tribe. They're actually, I think, move around naked and all that. They live in caves and very interior jungle and all that. So such tribes are also there. So such cases are there, but unseeability, I think, is not a phenomenon which is. It may be only an exception, very rare exception in Kerala. But definitely, the feminist movement all over India also, the feminist movement is elitist. For example, the sexual violence against Dalit Bahujan women is not addressed by feminist movement, the mainstream feminist movement.
Right.
Because I think they are going by the traditional culture of Anulom and Vilom, which is actually coming from Manusmriti. That is, the upper caste men, the privileged caste men can have sex with Dalit and Bahujan women,
Yeah.
but the women, the men from the underprivileged caste should not even touch the privileged caste women. So Vilom, so Anulom and Vilom. So this is there in the culture in India, and that is why this is not addressed even by feminist movements. There was a movement in Kerala initially. It was a movement resisting the land occupation during the time of CPIM's rule in a place called Navai Kulam, near to that, in Kollam Thiruvananthapuram border. There was a lot of violence against women, Dalit women and all. And some mafia wanted to occupy this land. But the feminist movement was not forthcoming in coming out against it.
Yeah,
Because they don't have that kind of sensibility. So that is unfortunate in India. So I think there is need for a change in that respect. And regarding Janu, I think, she was quite vacillating. She was always trying to do something good for the Dalits and Adivasis, but then she was vacillating always. She went to CPIM, then she went to South Zone Adivasi Forum, then she went with Salim Kumar, then Geetanandan, then joined BJP because she had political ambitions. But that didn't work out. BJP did not treat her well. And now I doubt whether she is with BJP also. But she did not come out in any public statement against the BJP. But definitely she is very unhappy with BJP. That much I know.
I found her. She is a very fiery lady. I spoke with her and attended her lectures, but was twice, thrice in South only, in South India. And I really found her very well studied and very good in her speech and taking this.
She's quite articulate.
Yeah, very.
I listened to one of her speeches. She was saying that the primary demands of the Adivasis in Kerala is land and education.
Yes.
She said.
Thank you very much, Gilbert, for your wonderful explanation and your entire speech.
One small thing I'll just tell. An interesting observation made by Janu. She was saying that we don't want to enter the mainstream. She was very aggressively saying that we don't want to enter the mainstream. Why do you don't want to enter the mainstream? They asked. This was actually a late 90s. No, early 2000s. Then 2003. Then she was saying that the mainstream has got dowry. It has got communalism. We don't want all that. Okay, that is very interesting actually. She was saying that. Yeah, I'll stop here.
Kerala lost a very good, very towering personality in land reform movement. They lost because she joined afterwards she joined BJP and now she's nowhere. Yeah. Thank you.
I think she's in a limbo now.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Professor Thangra, sir. Yeah. Dr. Thangra, sir. Okay. I think not able to speak. Okay. Professor Thangra, sir. Yeah. Sir, you are muted.
Yes.
Yes.
I was trying to ask one question that the Christian missionaries who came from European countries first landed in Kerala and Goa. From there, they spread to other states like Tamil Nadu and other states. What I found was Christian missionaries have done a lot of reformist work, particularly in providing education, in requesting the colonial government to do the welfare program, particularly distribution of land and all that. And in that context, what is the role of Christian missionaries in Kerala? Whether they have done the service like in Tamil Nadu, whether they have done similar work in Kerala. That's my question. Let me also thank you for giving a nice presentation. Thank you for your nice presentation. Yeah, just answer my question.
Okay, thank you for the question. Actually, Christian missionaries, they were mainly Protestants. Now they are called as the Church of South India. There were three groups before colonialism left, British colonialism left from India. There were three groups: Basil Mission in Malabar, and CMS, Church Mission Society in the area Kottayam, that area, that is South Central Kerala. And in the south of Kerala, there was LMS, London Missionary Society. So after they left, after colonialism left, they joined together and formed the Church of South India, similar to Church of North India. So they have done a lot of work for underprivileged castes. They were Protestants actually, and they, Basil Mission also had started tiles factory. They were also involved in productive activities like that, then weaving industry, these kind of things. And Church Mission Society also, they did, London Missionary Society in Tiruvidampur also did a lot of work, especially in education. They contributed a lot in education, English education, and that is why those people in south of Kerala, they are actually very well off in education, and they do very well. These people, these Protestant CSI people, they are ethnically, they look quite black and all that, but then they are very learned people, and they have got a lot of education, and they are in good positions. A lot of educated people are there among the Protestants. Similarly, the Marthoma Church, was very welcoming to even the slave castes, and they allowed the conversion. And they used to, and this was one of the, when I was reading Buchanan, I don't know how it is pronounced, Buchanan or Buchanan, the 19th century English writer. So he was saying that there was a complaint. He asked one missionary from Marthoma background, yeah, I heard that you people convert the slave caste into your community, and then you also pay wages to them, to the slave caste. Is it true? So then he got scared, and he was saying that, no, that is not true. But actually they used to do that. So in the Marthoma community, it was an indigenous Protestant movement. It was not the European Protestant movement, but they were also quite welcoming. But then the Syro Malabar, Syro Malangara, communities, they did not allow the Dalit Christians. They did not allow to convert into their fold. When they converted, they assigned them a separate rite of worship. That is a Latin rite of worship. And like that, they made a demarcation of caste by that. But then, the activities of Christian missionaries in Kerala was very positive that way, particularly in the field of education. That much I can say.
Gilbert, why this third Christian denomination did not, were they dominated by the high caste and Brahmin?
Yeah, the Roman Catholic Church, that is quite dominated by Syro Malabar Church and Syro Malankara Church. So actually, I myself belong to Syro Malabar Church, and our people actually claim that we came from Brahmin background and all that.
Okay.
But actually, that is completely false, because there was no Brahmins. There were no Brahmins in Kerala till 8th century. In 8th century, Brahmins came from the north of Kerala. That is, the Tulu Kannada areas in Karnataka. So that is the first Brahmin incursions into Kerala, according to all the historians. This is well agreed upon. So, but there was Buddhism in Kerala until 8th century, until the time of Shankaracharya. And during Shankaracharya's time, Buddhism was crushed. And a lot of these people converted to Christianity. So Christianity had a better opportunity that time. And a lot of these people, I think, my people, my community people must have converted to Christianity during that time. And a lot of Iravas, that is a backward caste, have also joined into Syro Malabar and Syro Malankara churches, particularly in southern Kerala. So there is a saying in Malayalam, Aviyalil, this is in Malayalam, I will translate, Aviyalil cheratha kashanamilla, Nasraniyil cheratha jadi illa. That is, there are no pieces of vegetables which do not go into aviyal. That is a mixed vegetable. And there are no castes that cannot come into Nasrani. Nasrani is, the followers of Jesus of Nazareth. Nazareth is in Palestine. So that is the way saying is there. So that is not true. They are very dominant, but that is why they made churches for Avasha Kraistavar. Avasha Kraistavar means weaker Christians. Separate churches were made. But slowly some changes are happening. Some intercaste marriages are also happening nowadays. Yeah, that much I can say.
Yeah, I can only add one point, that the Sanal Mohan book on Sanal Mohan book brought out that it is the Christian priests and missionaries which took the lead for banning of slavery, which ultimately led to the banning of slavery in 1843. So Christianity has played a very important role in banning of slavery in Kerala. At all India level also, yeah.
But then these people who were slaves, they were then taken to, retrenched labor was taken to the plantations as bonded labor. And they were bound,
that I agree.
They were bound, beaten, and all that. Their wages were very low. They were not allowed
everywhere. They did not have a land. They had no alternative.
Yeah.
Instead of slave labor, now bonded labor and forced labor. Yeah.
So this was a kind of paradox. There was commodity production on the one hand, but then it was along with bonded labor. So it's a
but
typical,
then the worst part of slavery, that is, you are a property of the landowner, that you could be sold, that you could be violently harassed, your families could be slaves. That was all gone with the banning of slavery. What came was the forced labor, because they did not have a land, they don't have alternative. In fact, they work with the same landowner who was their owner earlier, as a forced labor, as a bonded labor.
Even now, out of the 73 labor sectors in Kerala, the lowest wages are paid in the plantation sector.
Yeah, I understand.
So, and most of these people are actually from Dalit background or OBC background.
One last question.
Okay.
What is the portion of land with respect to Dalits? Proportion of land held by Dalits and proportion of population in Kerala?
I have this data. It is actually, but I could not put it into the slide. I could not get time because we were busy with the dissertations. But Adivasis are having better land holding than Dalits. Because Dalits were denied land historically. Adivasis, they were confined to individual plots of land when the dispossession movement came. The colonial incursions and subsequent migrations and so on. So Adivasis have some land, even better than the average of general population, but the Dalits are not having land at all. I mean, it is, I think, some 0.05 hectare of land. I had the figure. If you send me your email ID, then I can send you this figure, Thangaraj sir. Because right now it will be difficult for me.
Thangaraj, the land holding survey, national sample survey on land holding, which is taken after 10 years, you will get the data for Kerala there. Yeah, but last question, I think there may be more question with Vidya. The same I am repeating. What is there any connection and interlinkages of Ambedkar and Ambedkar with Kerala during that period of time? You have any idea, or if it not, doesn't matter?
I don't think so, because you see,
okay.
I don't think so, because even now when I went for fieldwork in Chengara, the word Harijan is still used by people there. They use scheduled caste is the word they prefer. That is a constitutional the term which is used. But Harijan is also used. But
No, I'm talking of Ambedkar's connection. Ambedkar movement connection.
And the word Dalit is not used. Dalit was a word coming from Ambedkar's discourse. No, so that is not used. For example,
okay,
in
fine. It's fine.
So the influence of Ambedkar has been quite less, but then nowadays the importance of Ambedkar is going up, because there are Ambedkarite movements.
Okay.
There are Ambedkarite movements in Kerala. And that is actually coming up.
Okay.
And that is there presently. But otherwise, historically, it was not there. During the time of Ambedkar, that connection was not there. Periyar had some influence, because Periyar had come to Kerala, given speeches and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Akshay Gujar, please go ahead.
Thank you, Gilbert sir, and all the participants that took participation in active discussion of this webinar. Now I request to Professor Milind Pathade sir to present a vote of thanks.
Am I audible to all of you?
Yes.
Yes, sir, audible.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, audible.
Am I audible?
Yes,
okay,
sir, yes.
Thank you very much. It's my privilege to present a vote of thanks on behalf of Association for Social and Economic Equality, Nagpur. Today organize a webinar on anti-caste movement in Kerala and overview. I extend my gratitude to Honorable Dr. Sukhadeo Thorat sir, Chairman of the webinar, for his valuable speech and guidance. I'm grateful to keynote speaker of webinar, Dr. Gilbert Sebastian sir, who delivered a talk on anti-caste movements in Kerala and overview. He has described inhuman social practices in South Kerala, South India, which are more and less exist in Indian society. I'm thankful to Akshay Gujar sir, who have conducted webinar smoothly and enthusiastically. I extend my thanks to Shubhangi Khandare, who gave introduction of the speaker in this webinar. I'm thankful to Dr. Vimal Thorat ma'am for her active participation in the webinar. I'm also thankful to all the participants who have joined and participated actively. Thank you very much, sir. Over to Akshay, sir.
Thank you, sir. And we all express our sincere gratitude to Vidya Chourpagar ma'am, Dr. Trilok Hajare sir, and Dr. Gautam Kamble sir for managing the webinar weekly, and all the participants and Dr. Sukhadeo sir. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to listen to Gilbert sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this honor.
Thank you, Gilbert sir.